Hey everybody, it's Gary Mears. It's good to be with you. So, as we continue this series of video messages from Faith Chapel, we continue to talk about the events that occurred after Easter, after the resurrection, but before Jesus' ultimate ascension into heaven. Today we're going to talk about an incident that's referred to in Scripture as the walk to Emmaus. It's in Luke chapter 24. So on the same day, on Easter Sunday, two individuals, one named Cleopas and the other one we don't know the name of, are walking from Jerusalem to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles away. They're talking to each other about the events of the past few days. It's clear they're Christ followers, just not part of the original 12 disciples. So while they're talking, Jesus appears to them and starts to walk with them. But Scripture says this, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. So they see this stranger and they don't realize at the time who it is. As they're walking along, Jesus says to them, so what are you guys talking about? Cleopas, again, who's very sad, says, are you the only person in Jerusalem that does not understand the things that have taken place in these past few days? Jesus, playing dumb, says, what things? And Cleopas says this, the things of Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. We'd hoped he was the one, Cleopas said to the stranger, to Jesus. We'd hoped he was the one. But now it's the third day since his crucifixion. He's dead. Cleopas went on to explain that some of the women of their group had been to the tomb early that morning and found the tomb was empty and had a vision of angels explaining to them that Jesus was alive. So then others from the group, some of the men, went to the tomb and they indeed found the tomb empty, but they did not see the angels. They did not see Jesus. So it's clear that Cleopas and his traveling companion are confused. It's clear that they're in despair. Jesus then says to them, oh, how foolish you are, and how slow you've been to understand all that the prophets have said. Was it not necessary for the Messiah to suffer these things before entering into glory? And then the stranger, Jesus, began to explain to them all the teachings all the way back to Moses that prophesied or explained the events of the past few days. As the three travelers got to the village where they were going, as they got to Emmaus, Jesus was going to walk on ahead, but the other two convinced him to stop and stay with them as it was getting late. Jesus went inside, and after a while they sat at table for their dinner meal. Jesus took the bread, blessed it, broke it, gave it to them. And at that point in time, Scripture says, then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. The two then said to each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road? While he was opening up all the Scriptures for us? At that very same hour, the two immediately turned around and took the long walk back to Jerusalem to explain to the other disciples what had happened. When they got there, the disciples told the two, the Lord has risen. Indeed, he's appeared to Peter. Then the two said to the disciples, he appeared to us too. And they explained all the things that had happened on the road, how they saw this stranger, but they didn't recognize him. Then they had a meal together. They recognized Jesus for who he was, and he immediately vanished. Now, this is a bizarre story. Jesus appears to two people on the day of resurrection, but they're, for some reason, unable to recognize him. They have a long conversation. The two travelers are very saddened and very disappointed about the events of Friday. And as Jesus, the stranger, tries to explain to them everything that was going on, they still don't understand. They still don't recognize him. Then they had this miraculous meal, and once they did, they were able to recognize him, but as quick as that, Jesus had vanished. Again, it's a very bizarre story. The two men are blown away by this. They're so excited that they go back to tell their friends, to tell the other disciples what had happened. This is one of many appearances of Jesus to various people between Easter and Jesus' ascension. In Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it says this. He appeared to Cephas, that's Peter. He appeared to Cephas, then to the 12, then he appeared to 500 brothers and sisters at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have died. So there were multiple appearances, but this one's different. Again, he appeared to Cleopas and this other traveler who were well familiar with his teachings, but they still didn't recognize him. They still didn't get it. They have this meal, they recognize him, they realize what has happened. The despair they had felt turns to faith. The despair they had felt turns to enthusiasm and hope as they hustle back to their friends to explain everything that had happened. As bizarre as this story is, aren't we very much like the two travelers? We know the teachings, and yet sometimes we're so wrapped up in our daily lives, we're so heads down on what it is we're doing that we don't see what's going on around us. We often don't recognize that Jesus is walking with us. So here's what I suggest. Let's take time to think about this story. Not just today, but every day. Let's be a little more attentive to what's going on around us and to who is walking with us. And on those days when we're disappointed, when we're angry, when we're in despair, when we're frustrated, let's remember that Jesus is walking with us. Even if we don't always recognize him, Jesus is walking with us. And we can, like the travelers, let our despair turn to hope. Let our frustrations turn to faith and enthusiasm. Have a great week. As always, it's good to be with you guys. If you want to talk some more about the two travelers on the road to Emmaus or any of the things we've talked about in the past couple weeks, reach out to me. I'd be eager to hear from you. Again, have a good day. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.